Hello guys. So before I even start this video, I want to make a disclaimer that first of all, I'm not a psychologist. I am not studying psychology or anything. The only knowledge that I have on the topic is from reading tons of books and papers and just being the nerd that I am. And the second is that I don't doubt the professionalism and the, smartness and being a good specialist of the person who treated me. And this is just my thoughts, opinions, I don't know. So let me start to explain what I'm going to talk about today. So I know that a lot of you guys come to my channel because of my borderline personality disorder videos, and that about 2 years ago I went through a mental breakdown and I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and all that kind of stuff. And then I started documenting sort of me getting better, and now that I'm all well, I don't talk about it that much anymore. And one of the reasons why I am very hesitant to talk about it and answer your questions, because a lot of you guys ask me questions about how I was treated and how I got better, and I don't really feel very well answering them because I'm not really sure that what I had was actually borderline personality disorder, and I will explain to you why. First of all, the first reason that I started doubting that what I had was actually borderline is that it just went away after I fixed the memory, the traumatic memories from my childhood. So the thing is that I had trauma in my childhood, and before that I was a perfectly healthy kid, and then after that I was depressed for 15 years and I was suicidal a lot, and I developed a lot of symptoms of borderline personality disorder, which I will go more in detail a little bit later. This memory started coming back a couple of years ago, and I had a mental breakdown and I couldn't work anymore, and I went back to my parents and my boyfriend at the time, and I started doing intensive therapy, almost got hospitalized, was super suicidal and self-harming and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't know if I would survive that or not, because honestly it was the worst experience of my life. But after I really processed all that happened to me when I was little, I also had PTSD, I forgot to say. So after I processed that, I didn't have any symptoms anymore, and I don't have them now. And it's not that I'm super good at controlling them, it's that really doesn't really happen anymore. Let me just name the 9 diagnostic criteria for borderline and then talk shortly about complex PTSD. So number 1, frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment that I had. A pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships characterized by alternating between extremes of idealization and devaluation. Yes, sort of. I had that as well. Identity disturbance, markedly and persistently unstable self-image or sense of self. Definitely, I had that a lot. Impulsivity in at least 2 areas that are potentially self-damaging: spending, sex, substance abuse, reckless driving, binge eating. I had some of that. Recurrent suicidal behavior, gestures or threats, or self-mutilating behavior. I had that on and off, as a teenager, and then when I had my mental breakdown, I had that a lot. Affective instability due to a marked reactivity of mood, intense episodic dysphoria, irritability, or anxiety, usually less than a few hours and only rarely more than a few days. I had that sometimes. Chronic feelings of emptiness, inappropriate intense anger or difficulty controlling anger. Never had that actually. I internalized all of my anger and it turned more into self-harm. And I actually had to work really hard to start allowing myself to feel anger again. And transient stress-related paranoid ideation or severe dissociative symptoms that I also had, especially when my breakdown happened. I don't know, that's not really funny, but because I don't feel this way anymore, this is why it kind of seems very surreal to me. It kind of seems that it didn't happen to me and that it happened to somebody else. And the thing about borderline personality disorder is that people claim that it is not really treatable. So you can learn to manage it. You can learn all the tricks from dialectical behavioral therapy, which I actually think that you should do anyway, even if you don't have borderline personality disorder. I think that dialectical behavioral therapy, like the big book on it, is just really a must read for everybody, because it just lets you kind of understand yourself better and kind of deal with your emotions. Well, I was doing cognitive behavioral therapy, and before I started that, I had like 2 or 3 months when I couldn't go to a therapist because I wasn't sure if I was going to stay in Berlin or if I was going to move to Moscow, and part of this time I spent with my ex-boyfriend, and we were really interested in like what is going on with me, because I had all the symptoms. I was very emotionally unstable, and I had flashbacks, and I was sort of suicidal, and I felt really bad, and I had an unstable self-image and all that kind of stuff. And we were looking for this symptoms on the internet and reading a lot of like child abuse things and all that kind of stuff, like what it leads to and what happens if you go through it and whatever. And we both thought that I had complex PTSD, and let me read the symptoms for you. I have to say that complex PTSD is not in the DSM, and especially not in whatever they use to diagnose people in Russia, because this is where I had my treatment. So when I asked my psychologist about it, she didn't even know that it existed, and I don't know that she really paid attention when I asked. So when I came to her, she said like, yeah, definitely you do have post-traumatic stress disorder, but I think that you also have borderline personality disorder. And then one of the things that happened to me is that I was so happy that there is a name for what I'm feeling, even if it wasn't maybe like, I was really hesitant to admit it at first because that didn't really resonate with me. I read a lot of articles on that and a lot of people's experiences and a lot of videos I watched, and I couldn't really relate to some of it or to most of it. But then I was so happy that there was a name for the things that I was feeling that I sort of started convincing myself that that was what was happening to me. I don't know. It's really weird because when you feel so bad for so long, and then somebody tells you this is what's wrong with you, and then you're like, yes, this is me. And it's so relieving to put yourself in a box, honestly, because when you felt that you were like the outcast your entire life and that you were so weird, and now there is a name for it and you just feel so happy about it. So yeah, that's what I started doing. I sort of started playing along with that, although in the beginning I didn't really relate to much of it. So complex post-traumatic stress disorder is developed during long-term traumas. The victim is generally held in a state of captivity, physically or emotionally, according to blah blah blah. In these situations, the victim is under control of the perpetrator and unable to get away from the danger. This is what basically happened to me. So an example can be concentration camps, prisoners of wars, prostitution brothels, long-term childhood domestic violence, physical sexual abuse, organized child exploitation rings, and all that kind of stuff. So the thing that happened to me in my childhood lasted several years, and I was emotionally dependent on the person who was abusing me, and so that like it kind of fits the description. And so what symptoms are seen in complex post-traumatic stress disorder, except for the normal flashbacks and like emotional dysregulation that happens when you just have post-traumatic stress disorder, is emotional regulation. So it may include persistent sadness, suicidal thoughts, explosive anger, or inhibited anger. Definitely in my case. Consciousness includes forgetting traumatic events, definitely happened to me, relieving traumatic events after they came back, or having episodes in which one feels detached from one's mental process. So body dissociation, that happened to me all the time, like literally all the time, seriously. Self-perception may include helplessness, shame, guilt, stigma, a sense of being completely different from other human beings. What I just said, basically. I'm actually just reading it the first time in like last 2 years, so for me it's also kind of a new thing. So definitely everything that I read here relates to me so much. Distorted perceptions of the perpetrator, and this is really tricky because attributing total power to the perpetrator, becoming preoccupied with a relationship to the perpetrator, or preoccupied with revenge. I was never preoccupied with revenge, but I definitely went from thinking that they were completely blameless to like hating them with my entire soul, and then back, and now I sort of like just let it go. I don't have any relationship to them whatsoever in my head. So one systems of meanings may include a loss of sustaining faith or a sense of hopelessness and despair. This is basically what I was living through for maybe half a year. It felt like I was in this bottomless black pit of shame and guilt and sadness and pain again, and it was so painful, and I was not feeling anything or feeling intense amount of pain. I was crying all the time. I was cutting myself all the time. I wanted to die so badly, but I knew that there were people who loved me, and so I was like, well, I will hang on for a year and then see what happens. If I don't feel better, then I will kill myself, and if not, then I won't. So this is exactly what describes my state back then, and as you see, there are a lot of resemblances to borderline personality disorder. So going back to the fact that I was sort of playing along my diagnosis of borderline when I was diagnosed with it. I mean, the person who treated me, she's very smart, and she's one of the best, I think, in her field, at least in the city in Moscow where I was being treated, and she did a great job helping me. She said that she never saw anyone recover as quickly as I did. I can only attribute it to the fact that I was surrounded by amazing people who were nothing but supportive, and I am endlessly grateful for that. Those people are my family forever and ever. And not only my parents, obviously, but like everybody else who was with me through that time. But so when a person who is this important, and you know that they are really experienced, and that they have a long practice, and that they treat people with sort of same situations and same stories and same kind of shit happening to them, you sort of think, well, maybe they know better. Even if I don't feel like this, maybe I should. And you start sort of playing along. I cannot pick a better name for it. So I made myself believe that I had borderline personality disorder, and obviously a lot of symptoms really fit, but a lot of symptoms also overlap. Another thing about mental health that I think, like, it's only my opinion, but I think that there are so many ways in which a person can go wrong mentally. Just putting a label on it really helps to cure it. You can put somebody in a box, and then like you do a set of steps to help them, and usually it helps. And this is how it just makes life easier for the doctors and the people who treat us mental patients. But I also think that there are so many things that can go wrong with a person, and every diagnosis is actually so personal, and even the same disease will be represented differently in everybody. So each person will be experiencing it in a different way, and so diagnosis is really not that important maybe in the grand scheme of things. Because the thing is that you just need to know what to do in order to make yourself feel better. And so for me, what made me feel better is that, well, first of all, I did all my homework. I had to keep a diary of my thoughts and emotions that those thoughts caused. It was the most horrible thing. I'm very closed. I mean, it might not come across this way because I share a lot here, but I really control what I say. So I will not share more than I want to share. And I'm a very close person. I hate when people try to go in my head and start like picking on my thoughts. So I had to write down all those thoughts, and I hated it. Honestly, I hated it so much, but I did it anyway. That really helped because you could see recurrent patterns of your thoughts, and also it's sort of like a diary, and you see that you're getting better, because when you're slowly getting better, it's really hard because you still don't feel well and you feel like everything is still bad, but then you look back like 2 months and you see how bad it was back then, and you realize that everything is perfect right now. Like, it's just amazing compared to what was 2 months ago, although it's not perfect yet. So yeah, I did that. I did cognitive behavioral therapy, so we worked on my thought patterns and on my reactions and my beliefs and all that kind of stuff. I did dialectical behavioral therapy workbook because I didn't find a group that would suit my needs, so I just did it on my own, and I linked it in many of my other videos. I might link it down here as well. You can download it for free just on Google. Well, that helped a lot. Also, having a really nice support system helped a lot. I was living with my boyfriend at the time, and my parents were always there for me, and some of my friends were always there for me, so I had a really nice emotional support system, which, as I said, I'm really grateful for. But after that, I started feeling much better after like half a year, but then there was still something that I didn't deal with because we never really dealt with the trauma itself. So we kind of fixed the disturbances and disorders that I had at the moment, but we never really went back there and lived it through, because at the time it was too painful for me and I didn't really want to do that. And I don't know, maybe she thought that it wouldn't be so helpful or whatever, but I mean, at the time I don't know if I would have like tolerated that or survived that or whatever. But then I got depressed again this autumn because I went off antidepressants and it was too early, and then I came back here and I started living alone and I was feeling kind of lonely, and yeah, and it was kind of funny because I started like reliving the things that didn't affect me back when I was on antidepressants, and then I sort of just pressed them down and didn't deal with them, and then when I was off antidepressants, it started coming back, and I even had like visual hallucinations. It was kind of hard, but then I went back on like a supporting dose of antidepressants and everything became much better. So I started feeling much better, and then when I felt that I was mentally stable enough, I just realized that things and these memories, they don't really bother me when I am living my normal life and just going about my day, la la la. But when I'm meditating or in my dreams, like I had mostly nightmares. I had nightmares every night, and when I meditated, I really had this horrible flashbacks. So I realized that there is some things that I haven't dealt with yet, and I know that unless you deal with them, they will follow you forever. And I just started controllably go back down into those memories and resurfacing them with as much detail as I could. And at the same time, I did like a lot of grounding, like touching my skin, poking on it a little bit, saying I'm fine, I'm an adult, I'm in control, I'm safe now, and all that kind of stuff. And I did it for maybe a month or two, and that started really helping. It is very uncomfortable to live through that. Also, what helps is either saying it out loud or writing it down, because then you stimulate your thought process. Because when you're just thinking without talking or without writing, you can stop thinking about it anytime you feel uncomfortable. But when you already started writing things down or saying them out loud, then you sort of have to go on and you have to process the uncomfortable things. And so I think that it's really super helpful. And a lot of things that I didn't even remember, that didn't come back yet, started coming back as well. So the matters were much worse than I thought in the beginning when they just started coming back to me, and it was already bad enough. But at this time I was mentally prepared for that, and I really just had enough time to process that and to relieve all that in a safe setting And I did this all on my own, which I'm really kind of proud of, because nobody was helping me or anything. And after that, everything just stopped. I don't have any problems with interpersonal relationships right now. No emotional dysregulation, no problems with self-image or self-esteem. I don't have nightmares anymore. Oh my God, I'm so happy. Nothing really bothers me when I meditate. Nothing really bothers me at all. I just am super mentally healthy, like as mentally healthy as I ever was, honestly, and it's only getting better and better every day, week. So I'm not bragging, I'm just saying that this was the thing that really sort of alleviated everything that was left over after my cognitive behavioral treatment. So this also makes me think that I didn't really have borderline personality disorder, and what I really did have was complex post-traumatic stress disorder. But since post-traumatic stress disorder, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, is not in the DSM or any other diagnostic manual books, any sort of thing, I don't think that a lot of psychologists really believe in its existence, but it doesn't matter what you call it. The thing that is important most is that I feel very good now. Also, a very important thing is that I don't want to answer questions about borderline personality disorder anymore, because I don't really feel that I am entitled to help anyone with that, because I don't think that's what I had. So forgive me, but this will be my last borderline related video. I'm very sorry if I misled you. I will keep my videos uploaded because a lot of people say that they help. So I don't know, let me know what you think about all this, if you can relate to it. This is honestly one of my longest videos, and thank you so much for staying here this long. Yeah, thank you for being here, being with me. You're super supportive, and I really appreciate that, and I hope to have given back, or be able to give back to you at least a little bit in some way. So yeah, be nice humans, and have a nice weekend, and goodbye.